Hello crafters and welcome to a new video here at justonemorecard.com. It has been brought to my attention that you kind of like the video I did recently for the Create a Smile guest designer call where I used the little ship from this Underwater Love stem set, and that I should do a video showing how I use my Prismacolor pencils. So this is the video. I have prepared a bit. I'm going to use the underwater stem set again, but I'm also going to use like some dies here. I prepared a standard A2 sized black card base. I've used the bigger one of the frames from the W+9 Sunshine layers to create this panel from blue cardstock. And then I've used my circle dies from Sizzix to die cut this window from this panel. This is Basil Marshmallow Card Shop Heavy Cardstock, and I've used the medium scalloped border die from Lawn Fawn to create this border because it's supposed to be waves. You'll see later on, it's waves. And now for stamping, I'm using Archival Black ink by Ranger, and I'm stamping on this Basil Marshmallow Card Shop cardstock. That's difficult to say, literally, like my tongue is all twisted. Anyhow, the reason I'm using the Ranger Archival ink is that it doesn't bleed when you go over it with the Prismacolor pencils, and also it doesn't bleed when you use the solution to blend the pencils. I'm only going to use the solution once today, but it's still kind of good to have a good ink that works. Now I want to make this fish look a little bit more curious or surprised, so I'm using my fine liner here from Copic to draw him bulby eyes. Is that even a word? Well, to make him look surprised. So there. So now for the coloring. First of all, I'm holding my pencil very far back. I sharpened it. That is quite important. And then I'm applying very light pressure. Very sorry for my hair getting in the way here. And I'm applying pressure that is so light because I want to gradually build up the color. I learned this in an online coloring class that I'm taking from KIT CLOWDER. And it really makes a huge difference if you build up the color gradually instead of trying to get it down immediately. So as you can see, you can barely see the color, but I'm just basically putting down the first layer, and then I'm going to go over it again and again until I have the color intensity that I like. And since this is going to take a little while and I don't want to bore you to death, I'm going to speed up this process and play some music for you and then meet you again when we're going to put together the entire card. Okay? See you on the flip side. for the windows, I didn't want to build up the color because I didn't want the windows to have too much color. So I'm putting down only a light wash of, well, just some aqua color. And then I'm using this blending solution. I use Zested in the US. I think Gamsol is more popular, but you can't get it here. So Zested is basically the same thing. And then I'm blending out the color a bit so I have a very light blue tint. And you can see here the beautiful gradient that I got on the fish and on the boat by simply building up the color gradually and not quickly. Now, as for the background for the water, it's going to look like a hot mess, but stay with me and I'll show you how I'll fix it later on. Alright, it looks god-awful. I know, it looks totally awful, but I've grabbed the biggest blending stump that I had and I dipped it into the blending solution. And as you can see here, I'm smoothing out the background. You could do this with pencils as well. Like if you took care, you could do this with pencils and you can clean it up on some like sanding paper. But I noticed that my pencils get shorter and shorter really quick when I do these backgrounds. So I'm just putting down color and then using a blending stump to blend this out. And you can see, I'm even doing some swirly motions, that it blends out really nicely and you end up with this quite nice background and quite even background as well. And it looked really awful. You really thought I didn't know what I was doing, right? You can admit this. I sometimes also don't know what I'm doing, so that's okay. To add some additional interest, I embossed some bubbles. You can see them on the top with Judikins Iridescent Sparkle Embossing Powder. And now I'm adding some dots with a Signo White gel pen, simply for some additional interest. I just find that's kind of cute, so that's why I add them. I put some foam tape on the back of the ship and the fish. I fuzzy cut them, and now I'm putting them here on my little scene. I'm just using one layer of foam tape to give these two elements a little bit of dimension, and I will later on double up on the foam tape on the front panel here. I'm just putting it on top of my background here so I know where to place the ship and the fish. I'm also putting some acetate on the back of my front panel, not for a shaker card, simply because I thought since we're basically looking at something that is underwater, it would be like looking through a bullseye. And putting glue on this is just so much easier with the ATG gun. This is just, love it. Best investment ever. Here's my acetate. I'm trying to make sure not to have any cat hair on there. I usually fail, but this time miraculously it worked. And of course I had completely forgotten to heat emboss my sentiment before I put the acetate down, because acetate and heat don't really go well together. If you don't know why, try it, you'll be surprised. I'm stamping my sentiment with Versamark ink, and then I'm grabbing my Zing embossing powder. I'm using Zing Gold Sparkle something embossing powder. And you can see the static immediately also draws it to the acetate, so you have to make sure to remove that before you heat set it. And then I'm trying to heat set it and not let any heat get onto my acetate, and I almost managed. At least you can't really see it anymore. And here's the finished card after I had put everything together. You have this nice scene that I've colored with the Prismacolor pencils, and here are some close-ups because you've been asking for it. Here's the sentiment. And of course, here's a close-up of the boat and the fish and of the color that I did there. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. If you liked it, please leave me a thumbs up. A comment would be totally awesome, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.